So I'm gonna tell you right now that buying a home can be pretty stressful. And on top of everything else, those costs that come down in purchasing a house, it's not just the purchase price that you're looking at. There's always those extra costs that are added on. Well, we're gonna kind of dive in a little bit deeper on that.
Yeah, a lot of you are probably wondering what it's like to move to Colorado, but more specifically, how much does it really cost to buy a house here in Denver?
All right, let's go. All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. If this is your first time watching, we are your Colorado real estate family. Always bringing you the good, the bad, and sometimes maybe inappropriate of Denver and all of its surrounding cities. Also, if you're looking at buying or selling real estate in Colorado, always here, licensed, helping you with all your real estate needs.
Yeah, so if you're interested in what it looks like to live in Colorado, or more specifically Denver and its surrounding cities, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because we're the people who are going to take you all around Denver and show you what's new and all the updates here in Colorado.
All right, so here's the thing. If we just show you like the median sales price of what it takes to buy a house in Denver, that's barely scratching the surface in regards to what cost you're looking at buying a house in Denver. We're really gonna get down and dirty into what that looks like.
Yeah, and then we're going to kind of go into some of the specifics on, outside of just the home cost itself, what are some things that we need to consider? So Peter's going to start us off right now with some of the median sale price.
Yeah, the median sales price.
That's what I said. I just talk fast.
Median sales price in Denver, which we've covered multiple times, and our cost of living in Denver. If you haven't seen that one, go check it out. We'll put it up over here in one of these corners. Is $565. The thing about Denver, which is kind of weird because Denver's surrounding cities have all been experiencing some crazy growth in their equity, double digits. Denver's like averaging right around 9% over this last 12 months, which is, I kind of mentioned in a video we did right before this area how I feel like Denver is growing outwards, and with that, people are kind of taking on these cities that are outside on the outlying areas of Denver. That way they don't mind the commute. They'll buy a house out here with a little bit more land, not as much congestion, not really gonna have to worry about being in that Denver proper area. And so I think that's a big reason why they haven't experienced the gains that a lot of these other cities have. So 565. Tell you right now that when we're looking at that price point, that's Denver. We're talking about the entire surrounding area, not just downtown area. If you're looking at more in the downtown area, then you're definitely looking at a higher price point. You're looking at like nines, probably even possibly a mil on your detached housing. Of course, you can kind of get condos in the area that are close to that median price point, but kind of looking through the MLS right before we started this video, looking at it a little bit, and I think there's maybe like 2 or 3 houses in downtown area that were actually even near the between like 500 and 600,000.
Right.
So that's something to really kind of take into consideration, just really kind of breaking on that median price point, right? That sales price point. So then what are we really looking at when we're looking at purchasing a house? Well, there's a lot of costs we got to kind of look at, guys. And I'm telling you right now, like your biggest cost as a buyer for the most part, because standard practice, now here's the thing, because they kind of changed the language a little bit. Now the commissions of a real estate agent is negotiable. Standard practice for the most part, I'm going to tread lightly here, is the seller most likely always usually pays for the commissions of the real estate agent. So your biggest cost when you're purchasing a house in Denver is going to be your loan origination fees.
Right.
What do those usually look at? I'd say a good rule of thumb for that is usually 1% is what you're looking at for your loan origination fees. So tack that on to whatever your purchase price is. Some lenders will roll that into your mortgage. Some won't. Some you'll have to come out of pocket. It'll be attached onto your down payment, right? And so now that we're kind of breaking into that, the down payment, what we're looking at with down payment. Well, FHA, you're looking at, usually around a 3.5% to 5%. So that's some extra cash you're going to come to the table with. Of course, it's not going to get tacked onto your median sales price, but something you can look at is your PMI, your mortgage insurance, right? Which you're going to need if you're not going to throw that 20% on. There are some loan programs where, let's say like I'm a vet, so VA, I don't have to worry about PMI because I have a vet loan. There are some other programs too. I think a USDA is very similar where they don't have the PMI, which you're not going to find in Denver. That's more your rural areas.
What does PMI mean?
Your mortgage insurance. Your parent, yes. So it's like that's your mortgage insurance. That's always kind of tacked on. You won't have to pay that if you have at least 20% down. So just another cost to kind of think about in regards to purchasing a house in Colorado. what are you looking at when you're going through the process of purchasing, right? And so then that's where we're kind of dig into, like, you know, your sewers, your inspections. And
yeah, so some things to consider. So if you're buying an older house,
Mm-hmm.
you know, usually you're walking into where all the landscaping is completed, and you usually have a pretty complete house. Now,
Yep.
if you're buying a newer house, a lot of the newer houses, depending on incentives, don't have a finished basement.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that additional cost that you need to kind of factor in about, hey, how much is it going to cost me to finish a basement? And then as well as the landscaping. So depending on how old your new home is, you could potentially have unfinished landscape. Usually the front is done, but the back might not be. And so
Yep.
that's another additional cost that you need to consider. Again, these
Well-
might not be priorities, but at least you know that there's something that you need to factor in as far as how much is this is going to cost for me to then resell if I had to in the future.
Well, and I was thinking about it too. And we grew up in Colorado. Basements are common, right? I didn't realize how basements
Yeah.
aren't so common in other areas. I had no idea. And so when we kind of look at other states when we're investing or whatever it might be, you might not have basements. They might not be common. So that's an extra cost that you could really think about. Colorado is common for basements. And if you
Yeah.
don't have a basement, that's uncommon. So that's something to really think about, because when you're coming into Denver, there's a good chance you're going to have a basement, or at least like downtown area. I'm not going to lie, when I'm showing clients down there, I call it more of a cellar that they convert.
Definitely not big basements.
Yeah, they convert into a basement where, I mean, I'm sorry, you go like this and you touch the ceiling. So,
You're also picky. Like Peter also almost bought a house for a 10-foot ceiling.
yeah, I'm not
Like
gonna,
we are not buying this house
there's nothing,
just because it has a 10-foot ceiling.
Seriously, there's nothing more awesome for all you dudes out there with your man caves. You walk into a basement, it has a 10-foot ceiling. You feel like you just walked into like this underground, like speakeasy or something. I don't know, it's so cool.
I'm also only 5'2", so having a 10-foot ceiling is not necessary for me. Okay, also, something to consider. Peter had mentioned it earlier about the sewer line. So
Yep.
it is not uncommon to have bad sewer lines here in Denver because we
Yep.
have the shifting soil. And if it's not a newer house, you might have the clay pipes. And
Yep.
so definitely something to consider. Like, for instance, even though this is not in Colorado, you know, just kind of an example, we just bought a house in Florida not too long ago, and we had to replace pretty much the entire sewer line. So it just, and that was what?
3,000.
Well, that was the final, like the last cost.
Yeah,
so it's about
yeah.
4,000 to do on this tiny lot with a tiny house. So it's definitely just something to look at. We also strongly encourage that when you're working with your real estate agent, that you need to get a sewer scope
That's huge.
beforehand. And now that's
Yeah.
something that is typically out of pocket for you, but it is worth it. We've even had in our newer builds people get sewer scopes and then find out that there was a crack in the soil just because of the crack in the sewer line because it's just shifting soil in this new area, and it was a brand new house. So it's still just something to think about, and definitely recommended from us. We definitely think you should do that.
Yeah, so sewer scopes. What we're looking at in cost with regards to that. So they actually increased it recently. I used this one company. I think it was like $100 a pop. You know, they do the camera, they give you the video. I personally didn't want to see the video because you just don't. Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
I'm not even gonna go there. I feel like it's a little one of those inappropriate things I mentioned. But so you'd mentioned though that like some of the sewer lines are out of pocket, but you can get creative in the contract where the seller is gonna hence pay for that. But it's something that we really want to look at, because outside of a roof, actually I'd say they're probably coming hand in hand. That's going to be your biggest expense for a discrepancy on a house, is either your sewer line or your roof. Those are your two biggest ones, unless, you know, we're getting into structural, which obviously I never recommend buying a house that's structural unless there's like a house that you just love or an area you love. I don't know. But yeah.
So another thing to consider is the inspection. Since he's talking a little bit about it, structural. Again, we highly, and it's like a must to get an inspection
Yep.
here in Colorado. Now, that's not to say that with our market being as hot as it is right now, that you're going to see things as is, right? That means, okay, we are going to buy it as is. That does not mean that you're going to be waiving this inspection or anything like that. It just means that unless it falls under safety or some kind of structural issue, you're going to take the house as is. Now, with that being said, you need to make sure that you have that inspection clause in there to make sure that you protect yourself in case one of those safety or structural things comes up, and then that way you can actually get your earnest money back. So it's definitely a good way to do it.
There's those rare instances where, you know, I've had a certain times where clients, they just want like as is. I'm not even worried about inspection. I never recommend that, guys,
Right.
because you never know what's going to pop up. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, like I said, here we have that shifting soil, so there might be something structural. Say there's a finished basement, and we find out, you know, a couple years down the road, if you don't get an inspection, that there was a huge crack in the wall. So sometimes, I mean, the inspectors, they'll find, I say 9% of the time they do find stuff like that. Sometimes, you know, it might be hidden because it was finished.
Yeah,
But that's why it's so big.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we have snow. So if there's an issue with the roof or there's some kind of water damage that we weren't really
drainage,
able
the
to
runoff,
see,
yep.
so we see it typically, you know, obviously in the from the roof in like the attic, if there is one, or we start seeing it in the basement with the the cracks in the water. You can kind of see some of that water damage.
Seeping through.
Things that you may not pick up, but inspector looks for every single time.
I was just thinking of our rental. One time there was a good rainfall and I went to the basement and there was literally water pouring through the window because we had some structural stuff there.
That was pretty cute.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Anyways, the other thing too is if there is structural issues, your real estate agent, especially us, like we always have like engineers that you can call and kind of have somebody come out, or a contractor, because it kind of takes two, right?
Yep.
Engineer, what's the problem? And realistically, what's it going to cost for me to fix it?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, come on. I went to school for engineering. It's like I respect the living hell out of them and all that stuff, but at the same time, there's a certain mindset that a contractor could have about being creative in fixing those structural issues.
Yeah, it's really important to compare two or get them to work together. Sometimes engineers have contractors that they work really closely with, so
best
even
duo,
better.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely the best duo.
Yep.
So just because there are things that show up on the inspection report does not mean that you have to turn down a house. It just means that you have to get creative, especially in our market today, and it's definitely something that you need to consider as far as cost. How much are inspections?
So inspections, they went up a little bit. I'd say you're paying probably between $400 and $800. Sorry, let's truck run by.
Big truck.
About $400 to $800. It depends on what you get to. So like your base inspection, I'd say you're like $400 or $500 right around there. But we have radon inspections here as well too, which costs $100 or a couple $100 more. So there's always additional things. You really don't have to worry about termites too much in the state of Colorado. I know like down in Florida and stuff, Texas,
humidity,
you have those termites, and that's something to worry about. You don't have to worry about it too much here. Mold, though, there's something you have to worry about. Mold. If you have that leak in that roof or even in a bathroom, you have to worry about that black mold. So
is there
those
additional
are all
mold inspections?
Yeah. So they do. They have different, and what they do is they test to see if there's any mold spores in the air, and then they're like, oh wait, this room has that, and so they do have lead-based.
Asbestos.
Yeah, and those are all kind of different add-on inspection items. But I mean, you're looking at, let's just say $500 to have your inspection done. A good, regular inspection with a sewer scope, you're looking right around $500.
Yeah. So another thing to consider with cost, right? I mean, again, Peter told you in the beginning, it's not just about buying your house, right? It's really important to take in consideration all the steps in buying a house. One of the other things is obviously your HOA. So if you have an HOA, and then not only that, what it is monthly or how you're paying it quarterly, however, but also what does it cover? Because if it doesn't cover all the different areas, or maybe you're in a single family, so it covers the main grounds but not yours, you still need to consider your maintenance costs and things like that. So just another really little, but definitely something to consider when buying a house, because it's not just about the price point of the house.
Nope, not at all. All right, so with the HOA, what you need to look at as well too is usually there's a HOA transfer fee. That, again, it's all negotiable in the contract, right? How we write it up and all that, but you're looking at a couple $100 if there is an HOA transfer fee, which most likely there is, because they have to get all the docks across and stuff, and the sun is blinding the crap out of me right now.
Feels good though.
The sky, clouds, the sun. Whoa, don't look at it. Just kidding. Definitely look at it.
It does feel good. It's December 12th today, and it's 62 degrees.
We had to take off our jackets.
We're definitely getting some abnormal weather here in Colorado this year, but we're hoping for that white Christmas. White Christmas, yeah. So I mean, these are all little costs. I'd say so. So I'm just gonna say, if we took like a round number, or if we guesstimated what extra costs you're going to be paying when purchasing a house in Denver, you're looking at probably like 3 to 5%. We're talking about those loan origination fees, the inspections. We didn't talk about appraisal costs. Your appraisals. So when Colorado's market is crazy hot, the appraisers do a thing and they kind of hyperinflate their prices so that you get the inspection back sooner, because we need to meet that appraisal deadline, right? But usually you're looking at, I'd say, between like $500 to $1,000, depending on how that appraiser wants to kind of do things. I mean,
it really just depends.
It does, but I mean, so that's another cost too. But like I said, I mean, I'd say closing costs you're looking at 3 to 5%. Some lenders, I can't speak to this because obviously I'm not a lender, but they are able to kind of roll that into your mortgage, or you'll have, they'll be like, hey, we'll roll this much into it or this much. Some stuff too, there's concessions. Maybe we could ask from the seller on the sell side. Concessions, it all depends on how much you want the house, how hot the market is, how much you're willing to get out of that seller in regards to repairs, closing costs, all that good stuff. So some great stuff to know, guys. Like I said, that biggest thing that you need to know is when you throw a median price point out there, we really need to factor in these prices, because even if like you have money that you're putting down, there's extra cash that you're gonna have to put on outside of that. You have your earnest money. Your earnest money is essentially a promissory note saying, yes, I am putting this down as collateral because I'm gonna purchase this house. Earnest money in Colorado, like I said, I'm not sure if it's similar in other states. 1% is the rule of thumb. Selling agents do ask for a little bit more, but I usually always go in at 1%. I think that's a good, fair amount in order to put down on that promissory note.
Yeah, and also, just from experience with our clients, depending on how risky you want to be through the whole buying process, you could either lose that or get it back depending on where you are in the process. So just knowing that, obviously a good real estate agent.
I mean, yeah, that's the agent's biggest. I think that is one of the most important thing through the transaction of purchasing a home for a real estate agent to do. Make sure you keep that earnest, protect that earnest money, because there's so many times where if you're not up on those deadlines, you're not knowing what's going on, and you don't pay attention to that. I mean, that's huge, guys.
And all the different clauses and everything that protects you.
If you're buying a $500,000 house, let's say a $500,000 house, that's $5,000 that we got to make sure that we save just in case we have to back out in the house. And that's something that's huge that we really got to pay attention to on our end to make sure that you're not just losing that money and, pretty much giving it to charity for that seller. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's super important to be meeting the deadlines, having the agent represent you, putting clauses in there where they belong, and just all around. I mean, that's what you pay for, right?
Yep.
So
exactly.
Well, I think that was pretty rich as far as all the different values. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Obviously, the real estate is what we do, whether it's helping our clients buy and sell, or whether it's investing on our own. This is what we do. I mean, we always talk about going around different areas and how we're just checking out the real estate. We are real estate nerds, and we like it. So if you have any questions more about the process or what it means for Denver specifically, please feel free to reach out.
All right, guys. Until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I mean, a lot of you are probably wondering what it's like to live
Selling a house in Colorado, we're always here helping you out through all those purchases and
giving you the most important insights and all the updates.
Also, if you're looking at purchasing or selling in the Colorado area, here with all your real estate needs. Right into that, and that's why we're really going to dive in and let you guys kind of surface doing that, guys. And that's where we really want to dig in, get real dirty into the